You have $2.3 billion and nobody knows. Not your neighbors, not your barber, not the woman at the pharmacy counter who's been refilling your prescription for 9 years and still asks how your knee is doing. You're not hiding exactly. You're just unremarkable on purpose. While everyone else spends their life trying to look like they've made it, you quietly made it and never mentioned it to a single person. And the strangest part is how it arrived. Not with a phone call, not with a headline, not with a banker shaking your hand. It arrived in a spreadsheet attachment on a Monday morning while you were standing in a self-storage facility in central Ohio, trying to figure out why Unit 214's roll-up door was jammed. This is what $2.3 billion actually looks like from the inside. It starts 14 years ago with a single storage unit facility you almost didn't buy. You were 31, working an unremarkable logistics job, and a coworker mentioned that his uncle was retiring and trying to offload a small self-storage lot off a state highway. 140 units, half of them empty, chain link fence, no website, cash-only rent collected in person on the first of every month. You drove out on a Saturday to look at it out of pure boredom more than ambition. The uncle wanted $10,000. You had $90,000 saved. You didn't buy it that day. You went home and did the math for 3 weeks straight, the way some people obsess over a hobby: occupancy, monthly rent per unit, seasonal vacancy, the cost of a new lock system. The numbers weren't exciting. They were just consistent, month after month, in a way your paycheck wasn't. You got a small bank loan, negotiated the uncle down to $265,000, and became, without telling anyone, the owner of a self-storage facility on the edge of a town most people drive through without noticing. The first year, it netted $41,000. Nobody congratulated you. Your cousin's wedding that same year cost more than that, and everyone showed up for the open bar. You sat with your number on a Sunday night and felt something quiet, not pride exactly, more like confirmation. The thing worked. People need somewhere to put the stuff that doesn't fit in their lives anymore, and that need doesn't care about interest rates or elections or which app is trending. So you bought a second facility, then a third. By year 6, you owned 11 self-storage properties across 4 states. You started noticing ATM machines the same way you'd started noticing storage units. Not as a customer, but as someone quietly studying the ownership layer underneath. You found out an independently placed ATM in the right high-traffic, low-competition location could net $300 to $900 a month in surcharge fees alone, and that most gas stations and small retail owners had no idea they were leaving that money on the table by not owning the machine themselves. You placed your first ATM in a laundromat you didn't even own, paying the owner a flat monthly fee for the spot. It cost you $2,800 installed. It netted $210 in month 1. Small. Almost embarrassing to mention out loud. But you weren't looking at the $210. You were looking at what it proved, the same way the storage unit had proved something 11 years earlier. You placed 40 more over the next 4 years, quietly. Nobody asks who owns the ATM in the gas station. Nobody ever has. Somewhere around year 9, you found mobile home parks, and this is the one that actually built the fortune, though it looks the least like wealth of anything you own. A rundown 60-lot park outside a mid-sized city. Half the homes owned by tenants who paid you nothing but lot rent. The other half owned by you and rented whole. The previous owner, a man in his 70s who'd run it since 1988 out of a filing cabinet in his garage, sold it to you for $1.4 million because his kids didn't want it and he was tired. You didn't renovate it into something Instagram-worthy. You fixed the water lines, repaved 2 access roads, and raised lot rent by exactly the amount the market could bear without pushing anyone out. It nets $310,000 a year now. You own 6 of these parks. People need somewhere to live that they can actually afford. And that need has never once gone out of style, not in a recession, not in a pandemic, Not when interest rates tripled and every headline said the sky was falling. Your accountant's name is Priya. She has managed portfolios for people worth 8 figures, 9 figures, and exactly one person worth 10 figures, and that person is you. Though she didn't know it until 18 months ago when the storage units, the ATMs, the mobile home parks, a regional pest control company you bought from a retiring owner, and 40,000 acres of timberland in 3 states all finally rolled up into one consolidated statement for the first time. She sat across from you at her office, went quiet for almost a full minute reading it, and then said, "This is the most aggressively boring 2.3 billion I've ever seen in my career." She meant it as an observation. You took it as the only compliment that ever mattered, because that's exactly what you built. Not a brand, not a headline, not a company with a mission statement and a Series C round. Just a quiet stack of assets that solve unglamorous problems for people who will always have those problems, generating cash every single month whether anyone is watching or not. There's a man at the industry dinner you go to twice a year, mostly out of obligation. He wears a jacket that costs more than your first storage facility's annual net income. He talks about his portfolio company's Series B the way other people talk about their kids. He drove here in a car that announces itself from 2 blocks away. You arrived in a used Ford F-150 with 78,000 miles on it because you needed to haul fence posts out to one of the mobile home parks earlier that day and never bothered to switch vehicles. When he asks what you do, you tell him you own some storage facilities and a couple of trailer parks. Nothing exciting. You watch him do the math in real time, the truck, the plain jacket, the word trailer parks, and watch him mentally file you somewhere comfortable and forgettable. He turns towards someone more interesting. That small, quiet dismissal is worth more to you than the open bar behind him, because the moment someone underestimates you, they stop watching you. And the moment they stop watching you, you get to keep doing exactly what you've been doing. This is what people misunderstand about staying invisible with this much money. They assume it's some kind of enlightened humility, a peaceful indifference to status. Maybe for some people it is. For you, it's simpler than that. It's structural. The truck starts every single morning without complaint. The jacket doesn't invite conversations you don't want to have. Visibility, you learned slowly and expensively in the early years, doesn't just cost money. It costs access. The moment people know the real number, they stop relating to you and start relating to what you have. Distant relatives resurface. A former college roommate messages out of nowhere with a business plan. Someone at church has just the opportunity you've been waiting for. You've watched it happen to other people who got visible. You keep the truck, you keep the jacket, you keep the quiet. Your younger brother, Danny, is the one relationship none of this protects you from, and honestly, you wouldn't want it to. He's run a small HVAC repair business for 9 years. Good reputation, steady but thin margins. The kind of business that survives but never quite breathes. 4 months ago, he called you on a Tuesday night, and underneath the small talk, you could hear the real reason for the call. A larger regional company wanted to buy him out. Low offer, but enough to finally get some breathing room, or he could take on debt and try to expand into commercial contracts himself, which is what he actually wanted to do but was terrified of. He needed $180,000 either way, for legal fees on the buyout or for equipment and bonding on the expansion. You could have sent it before he finished the sentence. $180,000 against a $2.3 billion balance sheet is measured in hours of passive income, not sacrifice. It would not have registered as a decision. But you didn't send it. You sat with the phone against your ear in your kitchen, in the ordinary house, in the ordinary neighborhood nobody suspects, and you felt the specific, complicated weight of knowing exactly what you could fix and choosing not to fix it that way. Because money handed to a business that isn't structurally ready doesn't solve the underlying problem. It just buys a faster, more expensive version of the same lesson. You've watched that happen to people. Not to Danny, but you've watched it. So instead, you told him you'd come by Saturday with coffee and his old QuickBooks login. You sat at his kitchen table for 4 Saturdays in a row, going through his margins line by line, the way Priya once went through yours. You found that 2 of his commercial clients were being invoiced under a rate he'd set 6 years ago and never revisited. You found the exact clause in his lease that would strangle him in year 3 of an expansion if he didn't renegotiate it now. By the 4th Saturday, Danny had restructured 2 contracts, qualified for a small business bonding program he didn't know existed, and needed $40,000 instead of $180,000. He got it from a credit union, not from you. He called you the night he signed his first commercial contract, voice cracking a little, and said he couldn't have done it without you. You never told him what you could have written the check for. You probably never will. That's not modesty. It's just an understanding of what his story needed to be. His, built by his decisions, not rescued by yours. But there are rooms inside your life nobody gets to walk into, and that never gets easier. Not the secrecy itself. You made peace with that years ago. It's the specific weight of watching someone you love white-knuckle through something you could dissolve in 60 seconds, and knowing fully that dissolving it would be the wrong thing to do. The quiet costs something too. Some nights, it costs more than the visible version ever would have. The email arrives on a Monday at 8:40 in the morning. You're standing in front of Unit 214 at the original storage facility, the first one you ever bought, because the property manager texted you a photo of a jammed roll-up door and you happened to be 20 minutes away. You're holding a can of silicone lubricant in one hand and your phone in the other when the notification comes in. Subject line: Annual Consolidated Statement. Final. From Priya. Same format she's used for 6 years. Unremarkable font. No exclamation marks. You almost don't open it right there. You usually read these on a Sunday with coffee, but something about the preview line makes you stop. You open it. You read the top figure twice, the way you read something when you're not sure you read it correctly the first time. Total verified net worth across all holdings, $2.3 billion. You stand there in front of a rusted roll-up door in a gravel lot in Ohio. A guy 2 units down is loading a mattress into a pickup truck. A dog barks somewhere past the fence line. Nobody looks at you. Nobody knows. The gravel doesn't know. The jammed door doesn't know. The number exists on a screen in the hand of a person holding a can of silicone lubricant, still trying to figure out why Unit 214 won't open. You reply to Priya with 4 words. Got it. Thank you. Then you put the phone back in your pocket, spray the track of the door, and get back to work, because the door isn't going to fix itself, and Danny's texting you about a part number he can't find. You drive home in the F-150 with the fence post scratches still on the tailgate. 14 years ago, you sat with $41,000 in first-year net income from a chain-link storage lot and didn't know what to call the feeling. It wasn't pride, and it wasn't disappointment. It's the same feeling tonight, just with 9 more zeros behind it. That might actually mean something, because it means the feeling was never about the number in the first place. It was about the architecture, the proof that something you built quietly, without applause, without anyone watching, just kept working the way you built it to work. Somewhere in this ordinary week, you're going to watch someone spend real money trying to look like they have what you actually have, and you're going to think, quietly, the way you always do, that the performance of wealth and the architecture of it have almost never once belonged to the same person at the same time. The knowing doesn't make Monday any easier, but it does make you wonder, again, what exactly you've spent 14 years building, and who, if anyone, it was ever really for.